Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today is a Xiaomi showdown. That was terrible. Either way, two Xiaomi phones that I'm going to be comparing today very quickly, just to see which one might be better for you if you're looking for a phone by Xiaomi in particular. I've got the Xiaomi Mi 10T Lite 5G and I've also got the Xiaomi Redmi Note 10. Now, the Redmi Note 10 is in fact one of my favourite budget phones that I've actually used this year. I'll explain the reasons why in a bit, despite a couple of shortcomings and quite a big shortcoming in comparison to the Mi 10T Lite. So let's get into it. Okay, so firstly I'm going to be talking about the Xiaomi Mi 10T Lite. So if we begin with the display, it's a 6.67 inch Full HD Plus IPS LCD display with a 120Hz refresh rate. This makes for some nice smooth performance when you're flipping between apps and going through your settings menu and everything like that. And if we jump into the About Phone setting and look through all specs, you can see that it comes with 6GB of RAM, and this is the 64GB model, but there are other configurations for you to choose from. The Xiaomi Mi 10T Lite is also running a slightly older version of MIUI 12.0.2, but it's still running on the newer Android 11 platform. In terms of the everyday use of the Xiaomi Mi 10T Lite, it's the same as any other Xiaomi phone. You've got your settings menu here with all your different settings, obviously. So you've got your Wi-Fi settings there, Bluetooth connectivity, lock screen display, sound and vibration, home screen, wallpapers, where you can select wallpapers from either your photos that you've taken or photos saved on the phone. So all in all, it's a pretty smooth experience. Running the Mi 10T Lite is the Qualcomm Snapdragon 750G processor. This is an 8nm processor, so it should make for a pretty powerful and power efficient chip because of that 8nm fabrication. It's also a 5G ready phone as well, so you've got that future proofing for having 5G connectivity. Unfortunately, I'm not living in a 5G area, so I can't test out the 5G capabilities on this phone. If we just talk a little bit more about the design, so on the right hand side of the phone you've got your volume rocker and your power button with an integrated fingerprint sensor which works flawlessly every time. If we then go on to the bottom of the phone, on the right hand side you've got your speaker grille, microphone, USB-C charging port which supports 33W fast charging, and a headphone jack. On the left of the phone you've got your SIM tray, which of course houses your SIM card, and there is also support for micro SD expandable storage. And then up the top is the earpiece, which doubles as a secondary speaker. So there are stereo speakers on this phone. Up the top there, you've got a centrally arranged punch hole camera, which houses a 16MP f2.5 selfie camera with video capabilities topping out at 1080p at 30 frames per second. I found that the selfie camera on the Mi 10T Lite produces some really nice detailed selfies, not too overexposed in harsh conditions, and then not too much beautification going on, although I did have to turn the beautification setting right down to allow this. And then if we flip the phone over, you can see that although most budget phones these days have plastic builds, the Mi 10T Lite actually has a glass back, and this is Gorilla Glass 5 on the back and on the front, which is a nice thing to have. And then of course you've got your centrally arranged circular camera module, which houses the 64MP f1.9 main camera, 8MP f2.2 120° field of view ultra wide, and then you've got your two 2MP depth and macro cameras, both at f2.4. In terms of the picture quality from the Mi 10T Lite, I did find that the Mi 10T Lite does produce some nice photos with good detail, nice colour. I did have to turn off the AI mode so that it didn't oversaturate the colours too much, and the ultra wide angle lens, and I will say it now like I've said in all of my videos up till now, the ultra wide camera is usable in good conditions. There's obviously not a lot of detail in it because it's only 8MP, has a smaller f2.2 aperture so it lets less light in, and then there is a slight colour shift between this and the main lens as well. But in terms of the actual everyday running of the Mi 10T Lite, I'm happy. You know, it's 120Hz refresh rate makes for smooth navigating through all of the settings menus. Of course you can jot it down to 60 if you really want to, but I always like to put it on 120Hz. It will eat into the battery a little bit more, but I think it's worth it for having that smoother experience. As for the battery, on the Mi 10T Lite it comes with a 4820 milliamp battery with support for 33 watt fast charging. This should easily allow for all day battery life, even if you're a relatively heavy user. But if you're a really light user, you should easily be able to get 2 days out of this phone, no problem. So if we move now onto the Redmi Note 10, it's a slightly smaller phone with a 6.43 inch Super AMOLED display. So it's now an AMOLED panel instead of just an LCD. But unfortunately, this is just a standard 60 Hz refresh rate display. So there's no high refresh rate 90 or 120 Hz display on here. But to be honest, I'm not really that worried. It's still smooth everyday running thanks to the Snapdragon 678 processor, which is a 4G only processor built on an 11nm process. So of course, in terms of raw power, this is considerably less than the 8nm 750G inside the Mi 10T Lite, but for general everyday use it's no problem at all. Flipping between the settings menu, which as you can see is basically identical to that of the Mi 10T Lite thanks to both being MIUI. And then if we jump into About Phone on the Redmi Note 10, you've got a slightly even older than the Mi 10T Lite MIUI version 12.0.1, but this is still running Android 11, and this has 4GB of RAM instead of the 6 on the Mi 10T Lite, but the storage has doubled from 64 on the Mi 10T Lite to 128GB on the Redmi Note 10. So in terms of the selfie camera on the Redmi Note 10, you get a 13 megapixel f2.5 lens, so it's slightly lower resolution than the Mi 10T Lite, but it still produces some nice photos with a nice amount of detail. Again, they're not washed out, there's not too much beautification going on, so I'm pretty happy with the selfies on both of these phones. If we flip over, you've got a quad camera setup again, but in a slightly different arrangement up on the top left hand side. So you get a 48 megapixel f1.8 26mm main lens backed by another 8 megapixel f2.2 lens with a slightly narrower 118 degree field of view, and then again you've got the standard 2 megapixel macro and depth cameras at f2.4. Selfie video tops out at 1080p on the Redmi Note 10 at 30 frames per second. And then you get 4K video support off the main camera on both of these phones. But unfortunately, the stabilization at 4K on the Redmi Note 10, although I said this is one of my favorite phones to use, and I'll get to the reasons why in a minute, the stabilization at 4K on the Redmi Note 10 was absolutely terrible. Not usable at all. So I had to drop it down to 1080p at 30 or 60 frames per second. So as for the reasons why the Redmi Note 10 is one of my favorite phones that I've used, if not my favorite phone that I've used, it's just the size of it. It's a real ideal size for me to use. It's got a nice big Super AMOLED 6.4 inch display, as I said before. You've got stereo speakers, which you've obviously got on the Mi 10T Lite as well. I'm not too worried about the slightly less powerful Snapdragon processor, as I don't do anything that's too intensive. The cameras take really nice still photos. Video, okay, I don't really take much video anyway, but the 4K video is a bit of a shame having no stabilization. But also the fact that it comes with a massive 5000 milliamp battery in a phone this size and that's this light. I just think that that is amazing. It's a full 35 grams lighter than the Mi 10T Lite, and it's got a bigger battery inside, which I think is amazing. It also comes with 33 watt fast charging like the Mi 10T Lite does. So again, battery life should be amazing, if not better on this phone, because it's a larger battery and it's a less power hungry chip inside. If I hold the two phones next to each other, you can see that the Mi 10T Lite is quite a bit bigger in terms of thickness and height as well. Width, there's not much in it to be honest, but like I said, a full 35 grams lighter the Redmi Note 10 is than the Mi 10T Lite. And the back of the phone, although it's plastic, the fact that it's white and a matte finish means that there are no visible fingerprints. So it's a phone that you can easily rock without a case if you're not too worried about the odd scratch here and there. But then to be honest, even then, scratches are going to be pretty well hidden on this white chassis. But yeah, I'm very impressed with the design of this phone. I love how it feels in the hand. Definitely something that I can rock without a case. Okay, so that was my quick comparison between the Xiaomi Mi 10T Lite 5G or the Xiaomi Redmi Note 10. Now, which one is right for you? It obviously depends on whether you're fussed about having 5G future-proofing or not. The benefit of the Mi 10T Lite is of course that 5G, that more powerful processor, having a glass back, but then there's no wireless charging on it, so does that really matter? And then you've got the Redmi Note 10, which is the one that I'd pick because I absolutely love this phone. The fact that it doesn't have 5G doesn't bother me. The fact that it's plastic doesn't bother me. I just love the design of this phone. If I could get my hands on a Redmi Note 10 Pro, I think that would probably be my daily phone forever because that thing just looks insane. But I love the design of this phone. The camera arrangement looks really nice. It's got a Super AMOLED display with a decent selfie camera, decent main camera, and that 5000 milliamp battery in a phone that's 35 grams lighter than the Mi 10T Lite. A really nice phone to have in the hand all day, every day. Thank you for watching. I hope this comparison helped, and I'll see you in the next one.